Aloha and welcome to our final presentation for the Kīpaepae Foundation series. Today, our presentation is going to be on Haʻi ʻŌlelo. Perhaps you have heard of it before, perhaps not. If not, that's even better because then we're going to have a really good time learning with one another. I'll just introduce myself and then turn the time over to Luana. I am Hōkūlani Holt, and in my capacity as coordinator of our campus Hawaii Papaʻokeʻau initiative, I'm excited to bring you the ways that you can join in Hawaiian cultural learning, thinking, and participation. There'll be more ways to do that in the future, and I hope to see you there. Luana, you want to share slides? Or, and
yeah,
get them, no scare them.
Hiki no, I'll do a brief welcome as well. So aloha mai kākou. You know, most of you have been joining us for the past 5 previous sessions. So mahalo, ya'oko. I'm really honored to be able to co-present with Hōkū in this series, and kind of sad that it's our last one, but it really isn't, because like Hōkū said, there are more exciting things being planned for all of us as well. So we're going to jump right into the Haʻi ʻŌlelo part. We're going to review a little bit. We're going to Oli together and practice the 2 Oli that we have learned so far. And then we're going to learn about Haʻi ʻŌlelo. And today, you're actually going to create your own Haʻi ʻŌlelo that you'll be able to use as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you folks. All right. So for our agenda, I kind of just said the agenda without even having the screen up yet. Reviewing, chanting together. Hōkū's going to talk about the purpose of Haʻi ʻŌlelo. Why is this important? Why do we do Haʻi ʻŌlelo, and what makes it uniquely Hawaiian? And then I'm going to talk about ke Kaʻina, which is the sequence, the order in which we do Haʻi ʻŌlelo, and why that Kaʻina, that sequence, is important. And then, like I said, I'm going to share a little Haʻi ʻŌlelo I created, and you folks are going to create your own Haʻi ʻŌlelo today as well. No laila e ho'omaka kākou. And as always, there will be time for questions as well. So let's begin by doing the Oli Aloha, which we learned in our first Oli session for Kīpaepae. I think that was session number 2. There is a website that you can go to view all of the previous sessions as well, if you missed any of them. And that will be on the last slide that we shared this afternoon as well. Let's get our bodies ready. So even though we may be sitting, we want to sit up nice and tall. Pali ke kua, the back is straight, shoulders are back. And we want to bring up that upper carriage of our body, because our breath is going to come from deep within our Noʻeau, from down in our gut area. So we want to make sure we expand the torso area so that we can bring that breath up and be able to hold our breath until we come to the places in the Oli where we can breathe. Okay. I'll start us off by doing Ōlelo, the first word, to give us the pitch and to just kind of help us focus in, and ho'omakou, and then we'll chat together. Of course, you can stay muted for this, so you can give them 100%. You don't have to be worried or hila shy in any way, because you're on mute. So go give them. All right. E ho'omaka kākou. O nauna pa. O nauna I ka hala me ka lehu ai. He halele hua no ia na kano e. Breathe. O ka uno ia e ano I nei. E li'a nei ho'i o ka hiki mai, a hiki mai no ʻoukou. A hiki pu no me ke aloha. Aloha e, aloha e. Aloha Maikaʻi loa. At least your faces, I can see your faces. Everybody looks so pleasant and really focused on the words of the Oli. Let's go back to that slide real quick. Are there questions about this Oli, the phrasing, anything to do with Oli Aloha, any nino? Clarification you might need. So remember, you can click here where it's underlined to listen and chant along with me as well. So you can ho'oma'a. All right, ina'a ohe nino. If there are no questions, let's move on to the second Oli, which we might be a little bit more ma'a to. We do it a lot now at our campus. This is Laukanaka. Again, this Oli was written when the stone wall was built on our campus. And the hakumele, the composer of this Oli, is Kīpaepae Raymond, who we know was a longtime Hawaiian Studies professor at our campus. So this Oli has a lot of meaning to us, has personal meaning to us as ohana, members of the ohana of UH Maui College. So remember, now this takes a little more thought because we have to do this and Oli. So we're doing multiple things at a time. Remember, it's with our hands, clap, 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 clap. It's actually pa'i, pa'i, upoho, pa'i, pa'i, upoho. Yeah, so cupping of the hands, mikai. And then just remember that when we come to this line, e ohimai, e hiala'ai, we stop clapping, right, from that line until the end of the Oli. All right, so let's get ready. E ho'omakoko. And I'll start clapping. You can clap with me. And then when I say pa, which is on the fourth set of claps, then we're going to chant, okay, after those 4 sets of clapping. Okay, all right, here we go. Pa. Pa ka moa e ku I ke Laukanaka la. Laukanaka no na e ku ha'ahe o e. E o e na mamo Kaʻina aloha la. E aloha I Kaʻina ko ka hua hoʻi e. Ho'oulu ia, ho'olau ia, ho'ohua ia la. E ohimai, e hiala'ai, e ola mai e. O kākou nā mamo, o mauia kama, e o. Maika'i, maika'i. And I just want to clarify, I was correct the first time. Upoho, upoho, pa'i. Yeah. So upoho is the cupping of the hands. Cup, cup, and then the pa'i is the slap. So upoho, upoho, pa'i, upoho, upoho, pa'i. And at the end of each line, there's an extra pa'i, yeah, at the end. So again, you can click here on this link to ho'oma'ama'a to practice. I also, before we move on, want to thank those of you who participated in our Kīpaepae, what was that, last month that we did for the accreditation team. It was wonderful. It was so good to, first of all, see everybody makealo ahealo face to face, and then to be able to engage in these things that we've been learning together and apply it in a real life setting. That's the goal, right? Is we practice, we ho'oma'ama'a, and we get to the point where we're comfortable doing it. So for those of you who are able to participate with us, maika'i and mahalo nui, it was really fantastic. And I'm excited for more opportunities for us to do that. All right, so I keia manawa, I am going to make sure I'm on the right slide. Okay, yes, I am. I'm going to turn the time over to Hoku.
Can I ask
Aloha.
a question real fast?
Yeah, sure.
No.
And I'll tell you the impetus for the question after I ask it. But if someone asked you how many letters there are in the Hawaiian alphabet, what would your answer be?
13.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So my husband and I we like to watch the Game Show Network when we eat dinner, and we were watching Masterminds. It's that show with Ken Jennings. And one of the questions was how many letters are in the Hawaiian alphabet? And the options were like 7, 12, and 20. And they said 12. And he and I were like, should we write into the show?
Yes.
The Okina was a letter.
Yes,
So
Okina is considered a letter.
that's what we both, he's been a teacher here for almost 20 years. So that's what we both thought. And
Yes. Olole. I would write in. I would definitely.
I know, right?
And educate them. Yeah.
Yeah. Ken Jennings, not so smart after all.
I
Okay,
love
thank you.
it. Mahalo, Sam.
Yeah, mahalo. So today brings us to the culmination of all our other Kīpaepae workshops. From protocol to Oli, to ʻŌlelo Noʻeau, to Pilina, and then now to Haʻi ʻŌlelo. These bring together all aspects of a Kīpaepae. So what you see here are the aspects and the parts that can go into a Kīpaepae. What you did learn about protocol, and then the Oli ʻŌlelo Noʻeau, what you learned about Pilina, and now as we're going to go into Haʻi ʻŌlelo, it will all be the culmination of what we have been learning up to this point. Next slide. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Haʻi ʻŌlelo. First, before I start about the Haʻi ʻŌlelo, I'd like to talk about the word known as a ʻŌlelo. A ʻŌlelo was a skilled orator, a person who had at their use and memory a depth and breadth of Hawaiian knowledge. They had to know the relationship between all of the listeners to be able to relate to them. Pilina is important when doing Haʻi ʻŌlelo. They had to know history, genealogy, places, people, stories, plants, and the variety of cultural practices. They had to know the places, the wind and ocean names, the climatic conditions, and a person's relationship to all of them. At its highest level is the command of the Hawaiian language and its poetry. That being said, a simple, heartfelt sharing is highly valued as well. So, a Haʻi ʻŌlelo is used in many instances. Formal and informal greetings, kind of like what was done over at the welcoming of the accreditation team. Formal and informal introduction of self or a group. Formal or informal welcome of visitors. Honoring of someone or some place, as well as before a battle. It's kind of like my king is better than your king, kind of Haʻi ʻŌlelo. There is a dissertation by Dr. Hiapo Pereira on Haʻi ʻŌlelo, as well as examples in the Hawaiian language newspapers. If you know anything about ulukau, You can go there, or newpepa.com.org. You can go there. It is certainly an important part of Hawaiian culture. Luana and I were having this conversation, as well as I had this conversation this past weekend, that of all the Hawaiian arts, Haʻi ʻŌlelo is probably the one that is least developed in this day and age. We are developed in hula, we are developed in chanting, but Haʻi ʻŌlelo, we need to increase our opportunity and our knowledge and our use of this truly Hawaiian cultural skill. Luana?
Kai mahalo e hoku. I did drop in the chat chat box both of the, that was a tongue twister. Both of the links to newpepa.org and ulukau.org. And then I also did put in Dr. Hiapo Pereira's name. So if you're interested in looking into that a little bit further, please feel free to do that. Mahalo hoku for sharing the background about Haʻi ʻŌlelo. One of the things I've been actually, let me back up a little bit. So Hiapo, Dr. Pereira, is my college classmate. So we're very good friends from years ago. And I've been really studying his dissertation and his presentations that he's done on Haʻi ʻŌlelo, because like Hoku said, I really feel this is an area that we have yet to revive at its fullest potential. There are people today who are excellent at Haʻi ʻŌlelo, just beautiful, because it really takes a skill in both ʻŌlelo Hawaii and in understanding your audience and being able to use kauna, being able to use those nuances to include everyone that you're greeting. It takes a lot of skill. And so like Hoku was saying, I want to see us be able to bring this back more and use it more frequently. So I've been following his work that he's been doing, and it's really fascinating. So from his dissertation, I'm just going to kind of go through the basics of what a Haʻi ʻŌlelo includes. So at the very beginning, and this is what I referred to earlier as the Kaʻina, the sequence. So at the very beginning of any speech, and that's what Haʻi ʻŌlelo means, yeah? It means, literally means speech in English. There is a Welina. So greetings are extremely important in our culture, and that we greet people appropriately. It could be something very simple to something very elaborate. One example that I'll give real quick about Welina is when I was a student at UH Hilo, we were preparing for a big leadership conference. And so people were coming from all over the islands to our campus, and we were hosting the Hawaiian Leadership Development Conference. And what I learned in preparation from that, from Dr. Taupouri Tangaro, is how important it was that we were prepared to acknowledge and greet everyone, regardless of where they come from, what island that they were from. We had to be well-versed enough to greet anyone from Oahu, from Maui, from Hawaii Island, and be able to use ʻŌlelo Noʻeau as well as poetic references that they would be familiar with. And what that then translated to that day, what transpired that day, was that as the people came in, they were so excited to be welcomed and to hear the place names of where they're from, the names of the rain from their aina, right? The names of their ali'i being chanted and being said to them as they came in. And it was such a beautiful exchange. And I was probably 20, 21 at that time. And it was the first time that I had experienced something to that level. We don't see that often enough today. And so I hope that our exploration of Haʻi ʻŌlelo today will be kind of like the catalyst to hear this more often and to bring this about more often. So the Welina, the greeting is always at the beginning. When we start off even a conversation, we start with aloha, right? And something we add to that word aloha. So Welina, the greeting, that's the very, very first part of a haʻi ʻōlelo. After the Welina, it's important that we Hoʻolauna, that we introduce ourselves, who we are. So if you were there at the Kīpaepae that we did for the accreditation team, what I started with was introducing the akua and acknowledging, well, sorry, if we back up, the Welina, I started with acknowledging akua, the ali'i, the kupuna, the visitors that were there, and then all of us, the ohana from the college that was there. Yeah, so part of the Welina. But that also leads into the Hoʻolauna, allowing them to become familiar with who we are. And that doesn't just include us, right? It includes who we come from, the akua, the ali'i, the kupuna that we come from. So the introduction here is important as well. In the Hoʻolauna, sometimes there will be an opportunity for the guests to respond and introduce themselves as well. Sometimes that's held off until the Panina, until the closing. So at our Kīpaepae for the accreditation team, that came at the very end. We did all our protocol first, and then the guests introduced themselves and were able to speak. But sometimes in the Hoʻolauna itself, there is an exchange between the host and the guest. Now, the next part of the haʻi ʻōlelo is the ʻōlelo Noʻeau. So this is where we get a little bit boastful, right? We want to show off our skill, and we want to talk about the things that make us and our home special. So picking an ʻōlelo Noʻeau that is appropriate to Kaʻina, to place, or an ʻōlelo Noʻeau that is appropriate to the event that is about to take place. Perhaps an ʻōlelo Noʻeau that will be familiar to the guests to make that connection, to build Pilina with them. So there's a variety of ways that we can select our ʻōlelo Noʻeau, but there should be the ʻōlelo Noʻeau, and sharing of the ʻōlelo Noʻeau should be to make the guests aware of these things that are special and important to us, and to lead into what's going to happen that day in our interactions with each other. And then following the ʻōlelo Noʻeau is the Panina, or the closing. This is where we then bring the Kīpaepae to a close. So acknowledgements, expressing mahalo or gratitude. And even when we go into, okay, here's the agenda for the day, or here's what we're going to do next, that's all part of that pani. Pani means to close. Panina is closing, right? And it's important in our culture that we have an opening and an appropriate closing as well. Okay, so let's break these parts down and let's just look at the basics of it. Now, again, the more advanced we get in ʻŌlelo Hawaii and in understanding Hawaiian language and poetic references, the more elaborate we can be, right? In our Welina. For example, aloha mai kākou e nā hoa maka maka mai ke onene mai ka moku o ke ave a I ke onene ne'e o ni'i hau Welina me ke aloha, right? So greetings to all of you, and then acknowledging from Kamoku o Keawe, which is Hawaii Island, the island belonging to Keawe, I Keonene Ne'eo Ni'ihau, all the way to the moving sands of Ni'ihau, Welina Mai Kākou. So bringing greetings to everyone. So that is an inclusive greeting wherever you came from in our Kaʻina, in all of the Hawaiian Islands, you are inclusively being greeted and being acknowledged in that greeting. Or it could be something as simple as aloha mai kākou, greetings to all. Welina me ke aloha, greetings of love, greetings of aloha to you. or aloha in nā hoa, greetings to you, friends. So short, 3-4 words could be enough for Welina, depending on what we're comfortable with. Yeah. Now we can always start this maka ʻŌlelo Hawaii in the Hawaiian language with a short greeting like this, and we could go into ʻŌlelo haole. So it is perfectly okay for us to use English as well. If Hawaiian we're not comfortable, we can start with something in Hawaiian that we're comfortable with, and then we can go into ʻŌlelo haole, into English. And I'll show you that in my haʻi ʻŌlelo. So again, the greeting, we think about how do we want to greet these guests that are coming to us. Now in the Hoʻolauna, we want to introduce who we are, right? So if you singularly want to introduce yourself, if you are doing a haʻi ʻŌlelo on behalf of a group, then you would want to introduce the group through your Hoʻolauna as well. You want to introduce them to place, right? Where are they? So in the Kīpaepae that we did together, I talked about Iao and Kapela Kapua Kakae, which is the sacred and secret burial of our highest ranking ali'i up in Iao Valley. So I use these specific place names because, first of all, they're close to where we are at the campus, but also because they bring honor to those who came before us, and they are place names that would be familiar to people who know our island. So acknowledging that. Now, maybe we're not makoko, maybe we're not ready for that. So our Ho'olauna can be simply introducing our name, where we are from, and where we live. And here is a little template that you can use for that. So I'll just do it with my information, and where you see the bold in parentheses, that's where you would replace that with your own personal information. For example, in the first line, I would say, Oluana Kawaʻa Ko'uinoa. Oluana Kawaʻa Ko'uinoa. So Sam would replace that by saying, O Samantha Bo Ko'uinoa. Lehua would replace that with, O Lehua Nani Bisin Ko'uinoa. Whatever your full name is would go here. Now in the second line, we want to introduce now where we are from. And for many of us, where we're from, meaning like where we were raised, where we grew up, might be different from where we live. And so that's why we kind of follow this format. So I would say for the second line, no kihei maio. No kihei maio. I'm from Kihei. That's where I grew up. That's where I spent my childhood, my teen years. That was home for me, okay? So you would replace what's here with where you are from, the place that you look at as your onehano, your place of birth. No kihei maio. And then in the third line, this is where you would now introduce where you live now. So for me, I would say, Noʻeau ma Pōkūkalo, because now I reside in Pōkūkalo. Noʻeau ma Pōkūkalo. So Lehua would say the same thing. Noʻeau ma Pōkūkalo. Yeah. Joyce, I think Joyce lives in Kula. So Joyce would say Noʻeau ma Kula, right? In there, in that line. So we're going to come back to this little template, and we're going to have you folks actually put in your information and do a little ho'oma'ama'a after I go through the next few sections of haʻi ʻŌlelo. Oh, before I do that, this is how the whole thing would sound. Oluana kawaʻa ko'uinoa, no kihei maio, nohoau ma Pōkūkalo. Easy, simple, we can, I know we can do that. Okay, so then after the introduction of the Ho'olauna is made, here's when we go into the ʻŌlelo Noʻeau. Again, Hawaiian and English, hiki no. So in my haʻi ʻŌlelo that I created for you as a template, I chose the ʻŌlelo Noʻeau e pū pa'akai kākou, which we talked about in previous sessions. Let us eat together. Literally, let us partake of salt together, right? And then you would go into an explanation of why you chose that ʻŌlelo Noʻeau. Why is it important in our culture? And what does it mean for us today participating in this Kīpaepae? And again, that would be whatever whatever you feel, what ʻŌlelo Noʻeau you feel would be most fitting and most appropriate. And then the Panina, right? So now we want to, after we've done all of that, we want to bring it to a close. So whatever acknowledgements that need to be made, whatever announcements, and then of course the expression of mahalo, and then we go into the event or whatever's now going to happen, right? The workshop, the conference, whatever it might be, having food together. The next part of our Pilina building we move into, and the Kīpaepae part, the formal Kīpaepae comes to a close. Okay, all right, so let's look at that. So what I did was I created a little Padlet, and what I'd like for us to be able to do is come back to this Padlet link and be able to, after you have formatted your Haʻi ʻŌlelo, upload your little Haʻi ʻŌlelo here. So we can do that mahopeo kapapa after our workshop today. You can come on, and we've had some time to practice. You can come on here and you can follow my example, and you can use this as your template. So upload a picture and then choose your Welina. How do you want to greet everyone, all of us that are in this workshop today? Write out your Hoʻolauna, again, using my example as your template. Choose an ʻŌlelo Noʻeau, and look how brief it is. Yeah, it can be elaborate, but it doesn't have to be. We can start right where we are. And that's why I chose this background of pohaku, of these ili, these stones, right? We're only laying the foundation. We're just starting with the very first layer of ili, of stones. And then we can build upon it from there, okay? And then in the Panina, a little closing expression of mahalo and what is about to happen next. So, aloha mai e nā hoa aloha, yeah? O Luana kawaʻa koʻu inoa, no kihei mai au, noho au ma paupu kalo. The ʻŌlelo Noʻeau e pu paʻakai kākou translates as let us eat together. Today, we will get to know each other better through food and conversation. Mahalo nui for joining us today. We will now make our way to Paʻina. I know every single one of you can do something like that, right? There's a little bit of ʻŌlelo, just enough in there, but we can go into into ʻŌlelo haole as well, and it still is a haʻi ʻŌlelo. Okay, all right. So bambai. That's a Hawaiian word, you know. There actually is a Hawaiian pattern for bambai. It's o. So after class, you can come back and you can put your haʻi ʻŌlelo up here. So what we want to do now is together create one part of that haʻi ʻŌlelo. So we're gonna, before we move into that exercise, let's pause and see if you have any questions.
Luana, would you mind pasting the link to the Padlet in chat for us?
Yes, Hikino. Yep, I can do that. And I'll do it now so I don't poina. Are there any other ninau? Okay. Okay, there you go. Padlet link is in there. All right, so Ohinino, it's your turn. Ko manava. So what we're going to do is here's the template. Okay, and all I want you to do is write this out, or if you're on another device and you can type it out, hikino, or you can just write it down. And I want you to replace the bold underlined sections with your information. Okay, so o Luana kawaʻa koʻu inoa. You're going to take out Luana kawaʻa, put in your first and last name. No kihei mai au. You're going to take out kihei, unless you're from Kihei, then you can leave it in there. no kihei maio. You're going to put in, take out kihei, put in where you are from. And then nohoau ma pouku kalo. Take out pouku kalo, put in where you now live. Okay, so first and last name, second line, where you're from, where you consider your birthplace, where you were raised, and then third line, where you live now. And you're gonna do that now. And while you're doing that, we're gonna put you into breakout rooms for maybe like 5 minuke, about 5 minutes with one other person. So you're gonna partner up with one other person and you're gonna just try this out. You're going to say your haʻi ʻōlelo to that person, and then they're gonna say theirs to you, and then we're gonna come back to the large group and see if there are any brave souls that would like to share it with all of us. Share your haʻi ʻōlelo, okay? So you get a little bit of practice time in the breakout room first to try it out, and then we'll come back together and see who's ready to share with us, okay? So I'm gonna go through the pronunciation one more time. So ho'olohe, oluana kawaʻa, ko'u inoa, no kihei maiau, nohoau ma pauku kalo. Okay. All right. So let's hit it. Let's get into our breakout rooms. Okay. So maikai, yeah. It's good and less intimidating when you're just with one or two other people to try it out, right? But we want to see who might want to share or try it out with us here. So I'm gonna pull up the template so that you can see it. That's not the template. Okay, so we're gonna go to, we're gonna go to, back again. Okay, there it is. Okay, there we are. There's the template, maikai. So you're going to just look at this section, take out the bolded, underlined parts, replace it with yours. So who wants to give it a try? Hiki. Oh, okay. Is that lei? Okay, hiki no.
Yeah. O lei Ishikawa ko inoa, no wailuku maiau, no hoʻau ma pukalani.
Mai ka'iloa, mai ka'iloa, perfect. I saw Sean's hand go up. Hiki no.
Aloha mai, o Sean ko'ui inoa, no Philadelphia mai au, no ho'au ma kahului.
Mai ka'iloa, mai ka'iloa. Who's next? Oh, Lehua? Okay, Jamie can go and then Lehua.
Aloha, o Jamie Kananiwai ohu ko'u inoa, no kihei mai au, no ho'au ma waikapu.
Mai ka'iloa, mai ka'iloa. And then so we'll have Lehua Nani can go.
Aloha mai kako e nā o iwi mai Maui a kama o Sharon Lehua Nani Dison ko'u inoa. No pi'ihana a ka hakuloa mai au, no ho'au mau kahulu.
Mai ka'i no, mai ka'i. Who else did I see volunteering? Anybody else want to give it a try?
I can.
Oh, okay. Hiki no. Yeah, hiki no.
O Tiki Leana Bisbee, ko'u inoa, no honoko hao mai au, no hoao ma kihei.
Mai ka'i no, mai ka'i no. Pam?
Aloha mai, o Pamela me Pili Aloha Alcancel ko inoa, no kamoku mai au, no ho'au ma lanai.
Mai ka'i. Excellent. Mai ka'i loa. Sam, you want to give it a try?
Yeah, they made me practice more than once in my breakout room. So, o Samantha Bo ko'u inoa, no New Jersey mai au, noho auma kihe.
Woohoo! Maika iloa. Maika iloa. Excellent. Okay, let me see who else is on here. Diana, did you want to try it?
Sure. Aloha mai kākou o ke anaka make aina ko inoa. No haula mai au I ke ahupoa o haula I ka moku o kalau koʻolau loa. Noho wau I kihe I ke ahupoa o waiakoa I ka moku o kula.
Maika iloa. Maika I mahalo. Okay, I saw Lehua Kaopio's hand go up.
Aloha Pilina mai me ke aloha e nā poʻe mai ka mokupuni o ke ave a hiki ka moke o ka mokupuni o ka helelani o lehua koʻu inoa no waiʻana mai iao a kā naʻe noho au ma ka hului. Mahalo.
Maika iloa. Maika iloa. And we have Joyce. Do you want to try, Joyce?
Okay.
Okay.
O Joyce Yamada, ka'u inoa no waihe'e mai au noho au ma kula.
Woohoo! Maika'i, Maika'i. Fantastic. Did I miss anyone? Ole? Lorene, did you want to give it a try?
Oh, okay. No need to, but I'll do it. O Laureen ko'i noa, no lahaina mai au, no auma lahaina.
Maika'i, excellent. Maika'i loa. All right, so Pehea, how was that? Not too bad, right? Yeah, not too bad, right? So now what you can do is you can go back to that Padlet link and you can add in the other stuff. Yeah, the Welina, you can put in your Hoʻolauna that you just did, an ʻŌlelo Noʻeau that you want to share, and your Panina, your closing, and just make up the context, whatever, or if there's something coming up, an event that you have coming up in the future. Think about that and what you might want to do for a Haʻi ʻŌlelo for that specific event. Put it onto Padlet, and then we can kuka. We can talk story on Padlet and comment to each other and share with each other. So let's use that resource. And I think now, Hōkū. I'm gonna actually stop sharing for now. Okay.
Okay. Mahalo, everyone. For those of you who have been slugging it through with us from the very beginning, I hope you can see how everything tied together into the culmination of what we do with Kīpaepae. If by chance you missed some of it, you can go back to the recordings that are on the professional development website, the University of Hawaii Maui College Professional Development website, and click on any of the recordings that are there. And we hope that you will stick it through with us some more, because we will be having the summer intensive at the end of May. You'll receive, those of you who have been here slugging it away with us and getting all nervous with us and everything, you'll get the information about the summer intensive. It's a 3-day, I think it's 27, 28, 29, or 26, 27, 28, one of those. I don't have the numbers in my head, but it's down there somewhere. You'll get the email information, and we will be able to practice this more, as well as make items for using at the Kīpaepae that we have. Kihei designing, you can make your own pu'ohe that you can keep for yourself and be able to use. May 25, 26, 27, it's in the chat box. And and it's for 3 hours. I believe it's from 9 to 12. each of the days. It'll be face-to-face for some of it as well. Some of it may be here in order for us to practice doing some things that we did before, but there will also be face-to-face opportunities for your kihei designing and making pu'ohe and the other accoutrements that you need for doing kīpaepae so that you can have them yourself. So please go back to the professional development website for UH Maui College for the different recordings that you may have missed. And before I end today, does anyone have any last questions? I just wanted to thank you all so very much for attending these Kīpaepae Foundation workshops with us. Luana and I hope that they have been meaningful and they have helped you to come to another different understanding of Hawaiian cultural use and the ways that, you know, some of us may have grown up with this and didn't know it was like for real formal kind of stuff. It was just behavior that we did. And now we know, yes, there are cultural behaviors that can be informal and formal as well. Luana?
Ai, kako'o. What Hoku said sums it all up very well. And mahalo nui ya oko pakahi. Thank you to each of you for your time and your dedication. And we look forward to seeing all of your faces at our next opportunity to do Kīpaepae. And we'll keep you abreast as to what's happening in the coming academic year. We're hoping that we can continue this series into the next academic year as well. So mahalo nui.
Aloha.